You know, a lot of GB News viewers and listeners may think students, it's not relevant to me, but this is relevant because, of course, more and more people are going to university, higher education of all sorts. And this is very much an authoritative report. It's by HEPI, which is the Higher Education Policy Institute, working with Unipol. And Unipol is a charity that focuses on student accommodation, which is a huge, multi-million pound sector now. Let's have a look at what they're saying. Their research shows that between 2021 and 2023, maintenance loads for students have risen by just 5.2%, but average student rent during that period across England is up 14.6%. There's the 15% number that you mentioned, Pip. What does that mean in real money? Well, the average maintenance loan is £7,590 this year, and the average student rent in England is £7,566, and that leaves you 24 quid a year, which is where you get your 50p a day from. So it's really... Look, a lot of students have to work. Some people think, oh, well, you should do a bit of bar work or whatever if you're a student to supplement your income. But clearly, unless you're getting extra help from parents, which a lot of students can't, their parents can't afford it, then you are going to be really left short. Yeah. And financing will be prohibitive, stop a lot of people going into higher education. And the point is that anyone who's good enough to go should be able to go.
And let's not forget, this is not a handout anymore. This is a loan, and they have to pay back with pretty hefty interest rates as well.
5-6% interest, even though it's the government lending them the money.
What's the dynamic here? Because we've seen, down in Brighton, they've had tower blocks, which are just student accommodation, but what they're charging is a pretty penny, even though it's quite a high standard of accommodation.
Well, about the dynamic, let's just look at a quote from the authors of the report that I just mentioned. As I say, it's the Higher Education Policy Institute and Unipol, very authoritative. The student maintenance system is broken, they say. Maintenance support doesn't cover anything like most students' actual living costs. Students and parents need urgent and practical solutions to delivering affordable accommodation. Now, most students who rent, if you go to a really good university, they often have accommodation in your first year.
Halls of residence.
Maybe in your third year, but you're on the open market in your second year and maybe your third year as well. And in many university towns, the rents have gone up a huge amount. I know this from my own kids' experience. One of them's at university in Bristol, the other one's in university...
One of the most expensive cities.
In Dublin. A lot of the same issues apply here as in the Republic of Ireland. And I think what a lot of universities are looking for is some kind of solution where they can put up accommodation, they can attract investment to put up accommodation with sort of tax advantages to try and solve this issue. But look, a lot of people will be listening to me and saying, what are you talking about, students? We need social housing just to house our family. And that is the issue here. That is the real dynamic, Mark. A lot of people will think students, they're often middle-class people, their parents probably give them some money on the side that they don't tell their friends. They'll be fine. We should be focusing on council housing, social housing at the bottom end of the market, with all respect, because that's where the real human misery is.
Can we also ask you about first-time buyers?
Sure.
Because Jeremy Hunt is thinking of a bit of a sweetener for them, isn't he?
So, look, the Tories have been knocked sideways by the fact that, polling evidence shows that a lot of young adults are furious that Keir Starmer focused on housing in his conference speech, but Rishi Sunak didn't mention housing at all. We said at the time, didn't we, that was a huge error, just strategically really, technical phrase, dumb, not to focus a bit on housing, given that so many 25 to 45-year-olds, they're swing voters, they're exposed to rental markets that are spiralling upwards in terms of costs. They can't get on the housing ladder. So what the Tories are doing now, they're floating ideas in the papers. And one of their ideas in the papers is, you might remember during lockdown, Pip, there was a government mortgage guarantee scheme to try and encourage, not force, but encourage lenders to offer mortgages at reasonable rates if you only had a 5% deposit, which, of course, many first-time buyers, that's the most that they can get. Again, unless their parents can help them. That scheme, that deposit scheme, is meant to end in December. It may be, what's being floated is that in the November 22nd autumn statement by Jeremy Hunt, they may extend that scheme for another year, so to December 2024. That's the main thrust of what the Tories have been floating. Just floating, these are proposals for first-time
So
buyers.
you don't think then details in the November statement that it may be some time before we get the sort of small print?
I think if he's going to do it, then he'll do it in the November statement.
Yeah.
And as I said, the deposit scheme, the deposit guarantee scheme, which is only an advisory scheme, that's meant to end in December. It may be in November the 22nd when we have that autumn statement for Jeremy Hunt, which may be a deal breaker in terms of whether or not he keeps his job. There are rumours he's going to be reshuffled out of the Treasury. I think that is where he will reveal any details of this scheme, if any.
Liam, thank you very much indeed.